I'm Kathy Eldon, and I and my team are so excited to have you here. This is Creative Visions. This is our CEO, Pat Chandler, Alicia over here, Jess is over there, and Miriam is over there. And we are, and Amy is over there hiding behind that with Jeremy. No, sorry. Amy is my daughter. We are so absolutely thrilled to have you here today. This is a place of great joy. It's the intersection of storytelling, arts, media, and technology. Right from day one, it was arts, media, and technology. Back in those days, it was like 1998, so technology was pretty simple. Nowadays, obviously, the storytellers and the technology people are coming together. AI is going to get us all out of business. I'm terrified of it. But we're all joined together today to create impact, to figure out how we can create maximum impact using storytelling. This is the place where it happens. We want you all to come back. We have the coolest mixers, sundowners, and we want you all to join us for those. Thank you, all of you. Tara is one of our favorite humans in the world, and we're so grateful that you came today and actually enabled us to have all these beautiful chairs. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kathy and Creative Visions team, for having us here. This really is a special place, and I hope that this is a special conversation. We're really excited. Thank you to my team, also especially Carla Fuentes, who helped make this possible. Creative Visions, my whole team. Thank you to LA Tech Week. Thank you to our panelists and the respective work they're doing. And also thank you to all of you. We originally had space for 35 people, and we had more than 250 people RSVP for this. So I assume we'll have more people trickle in, but we really want this to be a dialogue to hear what's on your mind. If we didn't have as many people, I would have us go around and introduce ourselves. But my name is Tara Roth. I'm the president of the Goldhirsh Foundation. We are a private family foundation based here in LA. Our origin story is we were endowed by the sale of Inc. magazine, all about entrepreneurship. Yes. Oh, I'm glad. I like that. Enthusiastic. Yes. Yeah. Inc. magazine and Sale magazine. So we have media and entrepreneurship very much in our DNA. I was on the founding team of Good Magazine here in Los Angeles, so have been I love this, the shock and awe, it's great, I love it. So we really take those same values about media and entrepreneurship and the private sector for social good and bring that into the work we do with the Goldhirsh Foundation. We really like to think of ourselves as supporting the best emerging leaders, technologies, and organizations, whether they're nonprofit, for-profit, or government entities. We provide financial, human, and social capital to make these organizations thrive. And what brings us here today is the way we feel about we can use tech and storytelling for social good. We can certainly have conversation about the negatives and the perils of technology, probably not so much of storytelling, but today we're here to focus on the values that drive the work that these organizations and these wonderful leaders up here do. We think about technology having the values of accountability and transparency and accessibility and impact and scale immediately, an immediate feedback loop, and also democratization of information and activation. With storytelling, we really strongly believe in telling a powerful story that makes something memorable and actionable and also inspirational and aspirational. And I have to say, with the number of organizations that we see come through, whether they're requesting funding from the endowment where we make our investments or for our grants, it's really important to tell a story very well. We have had a number of initiatives within Goldhirsh Foundation where we've supported technology. We've made investments in organizations such as Nation Builder, which is based here in Los Angeles, which provides a digital backbone for campaigns and causes and issues. We've also supported a group called Encantos here in Los Angeles, which provides Latino media for children. We have also supported an education technology company via the Unreasonable Institute and Unreasonable Capital. And then on a policy level, because we definitely believe in working in policy, making sure that we can support any of these organizations that come through with supportive policy. We've worked with the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, where we had 2 different fellows work on technology, business opportunities in technology, and inclusive access to capital and high growth entrepreneurship. We also supported Mayor Garcetti had the first Chief Innovation and Technology Officer within the city of Los Angeles. We sponsored a fellow working with Peter Marks, who has held that position. And under our sponsorship, Los Angeles became the only municipality in the nation with a staff person dedicated to developing a citywide transportation technology strategy that also included shared mobility and really an equity lens. We have worked a lot with the Ad Council. I'm on the board of the Ad Council. We've had storytelling workshops with our grantees, with the Ad Council. And then today, what brings us here is LA2050, and this is a community-guided initiative of the Goldhirsh Foundation. We're celebrating our 10-year anniversary of an online crowdsourced grants challenge. Yes, thank you so much. And so we really do believe in using technology for our grant making. Again, we think that this helps with democratizing the philanthropic process. It provides transparency. It provides an opportunity for organizations to tell their story in a way that when you normally apply for funding, whether it's pitching a VC or whether it's pitching a foundation, your proposal or your pitch often goes unnoticed, or it goes somewhere for not to see the light of day. But what we really believe is keeping these stories alive and these organizations alive and the work that they've all put into this. So we have a searchable database online at LA2050.org of all of the different respective submissions that have been submitted over the past 10 years. So I hope people can also use that as a tool. So turning to the main event today, these wonderful people up here with me, these are all people who are leading wonderful organizations, and they'll tell about their respective journeys with technology and how they use technology and storytelling in their work in varied ways. But they're all grant recipients of the LA2050 Grants Challenge. And I'm just really briefly going to introduce them, and then they're going to talk a little bit. I have questions for each of them. But first we have Alexis Cabrera of 9 Dots. 9 Dots provides high-quality coding and computer science education for students in K through 6. Quite remarkable. We have Sabra Williams of Creative Acts. They have a VR reentry program that allows those incarcerated in California state prisons to experience the outside world and prepare for release. We have Paul Lanctot of the Debt Collective. The Inner City Law Center and the Debt Collective created an online toolkit to empower tenants to file responses when they were facing eviction and to connect them with defense. And then we have Laura Gonzalez of the LA Clean Tech Incubator. Laura runs an equity innovation program for underrepresented clean tech entrepreneurs. So let's give them a round of applause. And now I'm going to turn it over to them, and we can just go down the line, and if you can just repeat your name and your respective organization, and then answer the question about your organization's mission and how your organization uses technology and storytelling to accomplish that mission.
All right, we'll start with me. That's working okay for everyone? Okay, as Tara said, my name is Alexis Cabrera. I'm the executive director at 9 Dots, and at 9 Dots, we're working to build complete kindergarten through 6th grade computer science education pathways in low-income neighborhoods throughout LA County. We're serving 27 schools and just about 9,000 students, and we really see our work as just getting started. How our work is part of this idea, this greater theme of technology for social good. We believe that everybody can and should learn how to code. With how, I don't really have to tell this room, but technology is everywhere in our lives today. I don't know about you, but every morning, whatever news I'm digesting, there's something about generative AI and something about jobs that are going to be displaced. And so when I think about the education that our kids need in order to survive and thrive in today's world, let alone tomorrow, it's absolutely, computer science needs to be part of that. And so we're doing the work to bring kids into the computer science education pipeline from a really early age, before identities, while identities are being formed, and before, our youth start opting out of STEM or frankly being pushed out of STEM. So I'm so excited to be here and talk to you all more about how you can get involved and how we can all work together to create, technology for good. And then I'll pass it off. Yes.
Thank you. Amazing work. I'm so honored to be in the presence of these amazing people doing life-changing work. So thank you. Thank you. So I'm Sabra Williams. I'm co-founder of Creative Acts, a social justice arts organization. And I'm going to actually read our mission because we worked hard on it. Creative Acts is an organization that seeks to transform urgent social justice issues through the revolutionary power of the arts and tech now, and to heal trauma, build community, raise power, and center the voices of those who are or have been incarcerated. And you two can get your own mission, SLB. So basically, we are taking the arts, we're using the vehicle of the arts and tech, and by tech I mean virtual reality, inside prisons to help people radically reimagine their narratives and to reconnect with the world outside, which I'll tell you more about later. And then we use the arts to help emotional outcomes of being incarcerated and the stressors of returning home. So it's not just the tech, although when they do put on the tech, on the headsets, it is life-changing because often they haven't seen the outside world for 20, 30 years. And then it's a behavioral program, right? Because the arts help with social, emotional learning, and also to, transform trauma. So that's kind of what we're doing. It was a long road there, and I can talk to you more about that afterwards. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm also very honored to be here with some amazing panelists. My name is Paul Lanctot. I'm a web developer at the Debt Collective. We help debtors, specifically people with student debt or people with rental debt, bail debt, navigate complicated processes in an easy way to get their debt forgiven. And specifically during COVID, we realized that there was going to be a massive crisis around evictions, given that a huge number of people, particularly in LA, were unable to pay their rent. And even though they had protections, we wanted to make sure that tenants would be able to assert those protections. So we developed something called the Tenant Power Toolkit, which allows tenants who are facing eviction to fill out simple yes/no questions about their situation, about the eviction they're facing, and it will generate the court documents for you without you having to go through that complicated process, and even if you're in LA County, electronically file it for you, so that the next step for you is just to wait to receive a mail notice of when your court date is. And the reason we did this, and we'll talk obviously more about it, but is a huge amount of tenants, around 90% of landlords when they go to court have a lawyer, but only about 3% of tenants. And one of the first steps you need to do is file an answer to the eviction papers you receive. And if you don't, you're at risk of a default judgment to be evicted from your home. So we wanted to make that one less barrier and give tenants their right to access to their rights and access to the court to be able to defend themselves.
Hi everyone, also very happy and excited to be here. Everybody on this panel are doing so much important and necessary work that I'm just so honored to meet them. So I'm Laura Gonzalez, Senior Program Manager at LACI, Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator. And our mission is to create an inclusive green economy in Los Angeles. And the way we do that is we focus on 3 priorities in the clean tech space. We focus on clean and smart transportation, on clean energy, and on circular economy. And we have 3 pillars in our organization, which is how we divide this work. So we have the unlocking innovation, which is the founder-facing kind of pillar, which is where we support startups and all the entrepreneurs that are creating their innovations. We give them curriculum coaching, a lot of support, and then we have the enhancing communities pillar, which is all the work that we're doing with communities to make sure that these technologies that these entrepreneurs are creating are getting into the hands of communities and people that need it, particularly communities of color and people, in communities where there's very low income. And the third one is market transformation, in which we do a lot of partnership and we do a lot of work with policy as well, because we know that there's one thing about creating the technologies, but it's a systemic change, right? So everything needs to change, and the policy is a big part of it. So we work with elected officials to make sure that, like they know, and this is where perhaps one of our biggest storytelling piece comes from, to make sure that they know about these technologies that these entrepreneurs are creating and how it's actually helping the communities that we all need to make sure that their needs are. So.
Thank you. And they also have a really cool space in the Arts District. If anyone has not been there, it's quite impressive. So to turn the conversation back more specifically to technology, I'm curious to hear what area of your work where technology has been able to help with challenges or has not been able to help, or not yet, where you could maybe foresee something, but really more what's the specific application then? And maybe we'll start with you, Paul.
For us, there's been a lot that it's been able to help with. If you've had the misfortune of having to go to court in the last 100 years, you probably noticed that nothing has really changed. It's very similar. It's very archaic processes, legal language that's very difficult to parse. People with doctorate degrees would struggle to fill out some of these papers. And the court is demanding that oftentimes people who weren't able to graduate from high school have to fill out these documents as well. And so we've been able to use tech to remove that barrier, to give tenants their right to a day in court, their right to assert their defenses. Even though in LA and across the state there were strong COVID moratorium protections around non-payment of rent, we still saw that over 80% of the evictions that were happening in court were cases of non-payment of rent. So even though you have those protections, it's different to have protections and to be able to assert those rights. And if you go to court and you didn't check a box on your unlawful detainer response, the judge is not going to let you assert that. And so even if you're going without a lawyer, at least this way you'll be able to state your case and be heard and have that right. Some things that still haven't been able to solve is, through tech is one, access to lawyers. That obviously there's also a lack of housing lawyers, and that hasn't been something we've been able to resolve, but we're hoping to make the process easier for tenants. And another thing that we struggle with a lot too is also just tech literacy in general. Even though we've made this tool really simple as we can with the complicated nature of it, it is still very difficult for a lot of people to fill out. A lot of people call our hotline. A lot of people need step-by-step support to fill out some of the questions. And so we're working on things to try to make that easier, to also translate it into, right now it's in English and Spanish, but hopefully to translate it into 14 languages pretty soon. And also to have some things like audio narration and things like that for people who are able to comprehend material better that way. So.
So I think that a lot of, obviously because we work in clean tech, all of the technologies and all of the initiatives that our entrepreneurs work on are all about tech and all about creating new ways and new perspectives of doing things, right? Especially more specifically for the environment. I think that I think there's two biggest challenges in this work. One is the money, which I know is a challenge for everyone, but it's very costly to fund some of these innovations because there has to be multiple testing, multiple iterations of the products, and then making the products is expensive, and so it's very slow. It happens in a very slow process because of part of it is the money, and we do help our entrepreneurs with pilots, but it's still not enough. And then the second thing is education around some of these clean tech solutions and why they're helping like long term, right? Like we know that a lot of like the climate solutions are not immediate, like you don't see the effects immediately, and so it's very difficult to convey why is this like so urgent, right? And so for example, we have some companies that are working on circular fashion. And circular fashion, they take, textiles, waste from textiles and create new apparel. But this is it's very expensive to do this. The sorting process is hugely problematic. And then they have to sell it like a really high price, and it's really hard for them to like sell these pieces. And for people to understand why they're paying so much. So there's just needs to be more education around why this happens.
Yeah, so the question was how we're using tech for good and where are the gaps? Yeah. So at 9dots, beyond providing a computer science education for kids from really early on. I mean, we're teaching kindergartners how to code, which is kind of wild, but they're amazing at it. And then we get them from block-based coding all the way up to 6th grade, where they're actually programming in JavaScript, which I'm sure lots of folks in the room here know underlies a lot of web development. So beyond the real practical skills that we're bringing to our school sites, we're also really invested in how can we sustainably make this part of a child's education. For us, we're during the school day. It's important for us that we're not after school. I come from a low-income family. When the school bell ended, I had to go home and watch my younger siblings. Not everyone can make it to that after-school space. So for us, it's okay. What are the ways that we can make sure we touch every kid? Because at the end of the day, we want to see more folks from diverse backgrounds at the tech decision-making table. And so one of the really important things for us when we're like, okay, every kid was, all right, we're not going to do this unless we bring teachers along. And so one of the things that we do is we not only teach computer science in Title I elementary schools, but we also train teachers to teach computer science. And so, through our gradual release of responsibility pathway, we get teachers to teach coding independently. And I think I related to some of what you two were sharing, because I think one of our barriers is, the teachers that our kids are tech natives. They catch on so quickly. I used to teach too, and sometimes I would be in a classroom and I took computer science courses in grad school, and they would catch on to something and find the bug faster than I could. But a lot of our teachers have been teachers for 15, 20 years. Majority of them are tech natives, but in order for our kids to get access during the school day, our teachers are community leaders. It's important that they're part of this process and that we do whatever we can to support them in being able to trailblaze this forward. And so I think kind of one of the challenges for us is all of our curriculum is of course online and on laptops. So I think just building digital literacy across the board for a lot of our teachers, and we saw this really come to a head with the pandemic. We work with a lot of LA Unified schools, and most of our teachers got a 4-hour training on how to use Zoom at the start of the pandemic. And then they're like, all right, go ahead and teach online for the whole year. So we ended up rolling up our sleeves and training a lot of teachers how to use Zoom, how to screen share, how to make sure that kids can ask a question if they're in a breakout room, how to use Google Meets, because I don't know if anybody knows this, but you can kick anybody out in Google Meets no matter what kind of participant you are, whether you're a host or not. So we had to teach that kind of stuff. And so I think that and it's rough, if you're teaching, we learned that one pretty quickly. If you're teaching and someone just kicks you out, you've got a whole class of kids there. That's a problem. That's a real problem, And so I think those are some of the ways that we use tech for good, but then also some of the challenges. And then, I think the other thing is just for us, we'd like to see more kids really be the creators of these technologies instead of just the consumers. And so I think that's kind of where 9dots provides the most in terms of this education, how to make more access for tech for good. I love hearing the solutions, the technology solutions that my fellow panelists have to societal challenges, and look how beautifully diverse this panel is. when we get more folks with lived experiences in the decision-making room, this is what happens. Like, these are the kind of beautiful solutions that we see. Because in my opinion, technology could either exacerbate or help repair a lot of these societal challenges. And I think folks like my fellow panelists are proof that we can move towards repair.
Yes, thank you. Oh my God, I feel like the prison world is something that most people here have no idea about, right? So I could sit here for hours trying to tell you how brilliant people are inside, how they're from communities that have been targeted, not that they are bad kids, right? Who have not had the resources and the experiences that most people in this room have had. But when they meet the arts and tech, and even before then, they are so brilliant. You should see some of the inventions that happen inside prison. It is mind-blowing. And I would just like to introduce Tara Roth, who is our Director of Development, and Major Bunton, who is our Director of Programs, who I met when he was incarcerated. So I feel like we are using tech right now as an outside-in tool, but we also would like to use it as an inside-out tool. We could do everything we need and want to do if we had the right investment. Simple as that. We have all of the amazing skills. We have 15 people in our alumni laboratory who have done over 260 years of incarceration between them, who have come back and trained as teaching artists, who now go in as teaching artists in the very prisons where they were incarcerated, who help to develop all of our curricula and make sure that we're relevant and have integrity as an organization. So we have everything we need. We could scale tomorrow. But the problem is, in a social justice, arts and tech organization, is that when people fund this kind of work, they see it all the same. So a tech program is way more expensive than bringing in paints and paintbrush into prison, but everything gets funded at the same level. So that's one thing. So I guess the great thing about tech for people inside, downside, there's no internet. It's just starting to come in a very limited way into prisons. So everything we do, we have to be able to use without the internet. So we have a partnership with Meta where they gave us 20 Oculus headsets, and we are able to preload the headsets with content. Even so, it's still pretty janky. That's the downside when we get inside, because without the internet, it's sometimes very difficult when you're trying to have people who are in a metal cage wearing headsets all together in a very small room, but we're doing it. So we started this program because we got very tired of people coming home after 20, 30 years inside and not being able to operate in a fully computerized world. Those of us on the outside have had a gradual ramp up to full computerization, but as Major always says, imagine you've come from a different country, you don't speak the language, you have no job, no housing, no way to get a job, maybe don't have any relationships, and you're just thrown in there and told, okay, be good, change yourself, get a house, get a job, do well, don't go back to prison. That's what it's like when people come home. They literally cannot check out at a supermarket, get money out the ATM, pump gas. I had a friend who, bless her, came back after 34 years. She was innocent. She did 34 years inside. And she told me she remembers standing in a restroom the first day she came home in a fast food place and just crying because she said, I don't know how to flush the toilet. I don't know how to get water out of the tap. And she said, this world is just not for me. I should just go back to prison. And that's what happens a lot because it comes with it trauma and shame, right? So people don't ask. They just assume that, oh, well, this isn't for me. I don't belong here. So I had heard about VR in a very rudimentary way being used in prison in another state where they just gave it to correctional officers and said put it on people who are incarcerated. Not the best way to do things. But I was like, this could be really good to show them the outside world while they're still inside. So we know how to use the arts, we know that they are life-changing and trauma healing, but we didn't know how to go that extra step. So VR has been a dream for us because it acts on the brain as if you've had the experience. So we filled the headsets with Travel. Most of our folks have never been off their block because they come from poor areas, areas with gang culture, areas where it's not safe for them to go outside of where they live. So we start with travel. They have a 2-minute experience of a trip to Thailand. I remember seeing somebody who did 40 years, 30 years in solitary. Yes, that does happen. In this state, just up the road in the Central Valley, 30 years in solitary. And he put that headset on and he took it off and he was crying. Because he was like, I never knew the world was beautiful like this. And I never thought it was for me. So travel is life-changing. Then we do daily experiences, like all those things. How do you pump gas? How do you check out of a supermarket? And all of this content has come from convening with them and asking them, what are your biggest stressors about coming home? And then when you came home, like people who are in the entry, what were the actual biggest stressors? And then we make content about that. Content is super expensive, $20,000 a shot. So we have to raise a lot of money to be able to keep expanding our library of content. So then we do the daily experiences, we do conflict resolution, we do meditation, and there's so many other things we would like to do. And then in Juvie, where we work in Juvie and have a civic engagement arts program, we would like to gamify it all because that's how our kids are going to learn, right? That again, super expensive. We could do all of this if we had the right investment. And those kids voted at 100% in the presidential election. That's how powerful the program can be for people who are incarcerated. And so I guess the things that aren't so great, one of them is that because prison is a system for profit, generally, even if it's run by the government and they pretend it's not for profit, it is for profit. They make things for $17, $18 a cent that all of us use, right? So that is a for-profit organized system. So as soon as they saw us bringing VR in, they were like, oh, how could we use this to not have to have people come to visit, or programs, right? Or we could use it as an incentive and a punishment. So if they don't do well, we can take it away from them. And so the justice part of it is to plant a flag that, no, you don't get to use that like this. In fact, if people, as you think, misbehave, they should do more programming, not less. It's not a punishment. So this is not a treat or a punishment. This is essential. And so the next stage, and I'm going to wrap this up because I could talk for hours about this because nobody knows about any of this. The next stage is we have one prison that we partner with that want to create a tech lab, because this is Web3 work that we do, right? And our folks are at such a disadvantage before they even go to prison in terms of tech, which means in terms of being part of the world, that we would like to educate them while they're still in prison, get them ahead so that they can code and they can make VR content and they know how tech works. So when they come home, they can get a well-paid job and pull themselves out of poverty. The same as we could have them, you could have a construction company train them on tech while they're still inside on VR, how to use a specific machine, walk into a well-paid job and never have to come back to prison again. So there's a world, a universe of possibility, but we have to partner with people that understand the urgency and the deep importance of having people back, like Major, who are creating so much value in the world, who are going to be your neighbors, who could change the world if we even had them get equal with people who are on the outside, who have had everything most of us here have had. So we have a responsibility, and part of that responsibility is expanding our vision and educating ourselves for who's behind bars that everyone here pays for. You pay $1 million a year for each child in juvie right now. Is that what you want? No, let's change it.
Thank you, Sabra.
Oh, you did it.
No, that was great. You answered my next question about it was wonderful. I think it was very powerful, and also everything all of you have said makes me think about other organizations in the kind of LA2050 family. I'm sure you partner with Defy Ventures, and that's an organization that brings people into prison for the day. And I know Leanne from my team has participated in that, and others have. Actually, a lot from the VC community have participated in that and said that was like a life-changing experience. And again, in the theme of storytelling, if you tell a story that can stick with you and then motivate action, all the better. And then Alexis, you brought up kind of the pivots, and we all got to see firsthand how these groups brilliantly pivoted during the pandemic, and people came to us and said, this is what our communities need. We can't provide, there was a skateboarding organization, so we can't provide after-school skateboarding anymore because we can't do it, but our communities are hungry. So I just applaud all of you for your flexibility and whatnot. So Alexis, thinking about your vision for the workforce, for technology, and what you would like to see, I'd love for you to just talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to. So what would I like to see for the workforce? Well, I think one of the things for me is we hear so much about how leaky the pipeline is for tech, lacking both racial and gender diversity, and I think that's really important. You look at the statistics on women, particularly women of color in tech, they haven't budged in 5 to 10 years. So I think important work needs to be done there, but I also want to acknowledge how narrow that pipeline is to begin with. So the 2022 State of Computer Science Education report showed that if you're from a low-income neighborhood, you are half as likely to have a single computer science course throughout your entire K-12 experience as your higher income counterparts, half as likely. And we think about, when I think about just how pervasive technology is in our world, and I could keep coming back to generative AI because I'm sure everybody's reading about this stuff. For a lot of us, AI is a black box, but it doesn't have to be. It's not magic. It's math and computer science. And it takes a lot of schooling to become really proficient in that sort of thing. And so for a lot of our kids, if you don't have that experience earlier on, then it's really unlikely that you're going to start in college, and then beyond college, it's really intimidating. And so, I think that starting really early on is really important, and the data shows this. That same 2022 State of Computer Science Education report showed that having a computer science class in elementary school is a strong predictor of taking another class in high school or in college. And yet, that same report estimates that only 7% of the nation's students get access to an in-class computer science class in elementary school. So, like that, and then we think about this effect is even stronger for, underrepresented groups, Black and brown students of colors, low-income students. It's like we can't really accept that 7%. I think we are in the middle of a technological revolution in a lot of ways. And we need the creative power and the lived experience of folks from marginalized communities at the decision-making table. And it needs to start early. One other statistic that really struck me when I started this work was girls start stereotyping boys as better at math and science as early as second grade. As early as second grade, you're starting to see people put themselves into these boxes. And, and then it becomes really hard, to try and enter these fields later on in life. And so, I think by starting really young, we are, transforming, we're building transformative identities, we're working on student confidence, we're working on grit and growth mindset, and, ultimately, creating space for our kids to see themselves, throughout kindergarten through 6th grade, really see themselves in this space. And I just really want to underscore this because at 9 Dots, we're there for the entire school year, once a week, from literally kindergarten to 6th grade, and we're building full pathways at school. So when we work with a school, think about that 7% number, right? 7% across the nation only get access. It's even fewer, right, if you're from a low-income neighborhood. At the schools we work at, we're getting 100% of the students access from kindergarten. Like, you have the class in kindergarten, you have it in 1st grade, you have it, And the way that we see that transform identities, not only of the students, but also the whole school community, is really powerful. We have this one school, Frank Deloma Elementary School, which is now they put on their website, we're a coder school, please come to, where we teach coding here. It's part of how the teachers think about themselves, it's part of how the students think about themselves. And look, for me, coding is just an entry point. Once you learn how to code, there's so many different technological solutions that you can pursue. And so, in our first few years with this school, now they see themselves as a coder school. Then they opened up a robotics program. Now they have a robotics program, and because we taught them how to code, they can actually program robotics. And so you can just see how quickly, bringing that, kids, we know what they can achieve when they're given the opportunity. It's just those real consistent opportunities aren't always there. So I think I deviated a little bit from your question, but I think, my hope for the workforce is that we do bring more kids from more communities, to the decision-making table, because it's so clear these technologies are just drastically impacting our lives. And in bathrooms, in fast food places, it's everywhere. And I believe that everyone should have a right to learn how to understand and program these under the software underlying these technologies.
Thank you. That's very, thinking about those poignant stories and real life and how to navigate real life. I sometimes have a real argument with Siri, and I'm like, I can't even imagine some of the other more banal experiences. And also, I'm glad you brought up AI. If we have time to discuss that, I do have a question for all of you about that, because I'm really fascinated. And we have 20 minutes remaining before Q&A with our audience. So, but I'm glad you brought that up, and that is something we're actually thinking about at the foundation, wondering how people are going to be integrating AI, or if they thought about AI with their respective communities and their respective organizations. But continuing on kind of the pipeline conversation and bringing formerly disinvested or continued disinvested communities to the table, I would love to hear from you about LACI's, the DEI program, the Equity Innovation Program you have, and what your vision is and how you're going to help LA and beyond achieve its climate and environmental goals with this lens.
We created the EIP program, Equity Innovation Program at LACI, because we've been working with entrepreneurs in the clean tech space for a long time, and of course we see the gap in in the gender gap and the income gap in the entrepreneurs that we serve. So we need and the racial gaps. So we needed a way to help entrepreneurs that come from historically marginalized communities to kind of level up a little bit. And so we do this by giving them a little bit more resources, more coaching, so they get 6 more months of coaching. The coaching that we do at LACI is really transformative, because the coaches that we have, the mentors, are people who are really, really good at scaling and building and scaling businesses. And so that's one of the highlights of the program for all of our entrepreneurs. And so giving all our entrepreneurs, our women entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of color, more time with these coaches really helps them. We also give them more business resources, and we give them. We're doing something that I stole the term from the design world, the charrettes. And so we just bring our entrepreneurs into a room, and we start brainstorming about their technologies, their ideas, and how can we help them achieve what they want, but also how can we help them partner up. And that's also very important, because some of them lack a lot of resources. Partnering makes them stronger. And so that's another way. And Alexis mentioned the workforce. We at LACI, we have a workforce program too, in which we train people, particularly people in communities of color, into the clean tech industry, because all of these technologies that are being created need people who know how to operate the technologies. And so we have very comprehensive programs, to help the entrepreneurs get the workforce that they need. And so that's kind of how we do it in the program.
Thank you. And I'm going to get more specific with you, Paul, about the actual implementation of the toolkit and sort of what you've learned and what you would like to see different about that implementation and what other possibilities exist.
Yeah, definitely. We've learned a lot. We launched publicly about 10 months ago. And already, even so early on, we've had over 12,000 people file responses, in households file responses to their eviction. That accounts for about, when we break it down to LA County, that's across the state, but when we break it down to LA County, about 10% of all evictions that are being filed in LA County right now, tenants are using the toolkit to file responses to. So it's a significant sample size of what's actually happening on the ground to people day to day. And we're able to collect those stories more than what the court would collect, and let alone the court would even give anyone access to really analyze, to understand what's happening. And so we know a lot of things that we had assumed have been confirmed. We know that the leading cause of homelessness is evictions, is people losing their homes. We know that this is disproportionately impacting poor communities, Black and brown communities. Of our users, 40% of our users who filled out the toolkit are members of the Black community. That's pretty we knew it would be disproportionate, but that's pretty shocking given that in LA and across the state, Black people account for 8% of the population. So 40% of the users. 35% are Latino. So we've seen these things, we've seen how it's impacting these communities, and specifically within these areas, specifically in South Central, in East LA, and causing displacement. And when people are being displaced, if they're able to find a home, it's not in LA. It's outside of LA, it's in Vegas, it's outside of the state, oftentimes. So we've seen all that. We've also learned, kind of some of the difficulties of people using the tool, and are trying to adapt and make it even easier and streamlined. There's a lot of errors that happen, just basic errors, like whether it's you wrote down your address incorrectly based on the papers. And so we have a legal team that reviews all of the papers that are electronically filed to make sure that they will be accepted by the court when we e-file it. So that's been really crucial and really helpful, but we want to be able to expand that and do that across the state, not just in LA County. Right now, if you file an answer and you're outside of LA County, you have to print the documents and still go to court. And this has been something that's been difficult, is all of the courthouses operate very differently. There's no standardized method. I'm sure many of our industries, prisons especially, there's no standard way that they're doing this. So it's been very difficult to get everyone, these courthouses, on the same page. But we're hoping, we have a plan to start to expand it to every courthouse in the county. We've been working with another organization called InfoTrack that is doing e-filing throughout different states, and so we've been partnering with them to make it a possibility that we can e-file everywhere and give people this access wherever they are.
Thank you. I think part of what's so exciting is seeing the different innovations that can come from the impact sector, which is what I use broadly for nonprofit and B Corp and social enterprise sector, and how there can be such tremendous, introduction of such tremendous creativity and invention and disruption within a civic entity, taking on the system for filing for courthouses, thinking about changing education system, the justice system, clean tech. I mean, there have been so many different instances where I feel like I've had the privilege of being able to work with among government and impact sector and for-profit, and we all need each other, and there are so many different, especially in this wonderful county and city where I say that this is where the future comes to happen. We have every global problem and every global solution. We all need to work together and help each other and learn from each other and learn with each other. So on that note, I would love to hear from all of you in whatever order you like, what you would like to request tell this audience with their brilliance and their resources, their time and treasure and talent, what you could use from them, how they could help partner with you. Very shy.
I'm just trying to think. Okay, so I would say two things. One thing is STEM is good. STEAM is better.
Yeah.
So why are the arts and tech separate in this country? So I'm asking you to, I know why. I mean, I'm an artist, I'm an actor, I'm an immigrant. In a lot of places in the world, the arts are seen as medicine, essential to be fully human. In America, we see the arts as entertainment or for artists. Our job at Creative Acts is to bring the arts and tech together and make them inseparable. So I guess I'm asking you to center the arts in your work in whatever way you can, or at least have the conversation. The second thing, who remembers 2020? I'm an activist, so when you ask me this question, you're going to really hear. 2020, a lot of people did DEI work, right? A lot of people were trying to become anti-racist. There was a lot of performative stuff happening, and some people were really doing it. But 2020 has not gone away, it's still happening today. So I guess I would ask you to reflect, since 2020, has your investment, your passion, your commitment had outcomes that we would hope? So for instance, if you're an investor, in Silicon Valley, I know, and in general with investors are pretty willing to invest a lot of money in tech startups, without as many obstacles to be crossed as when you invest in nonprofits, right? We have to apply for grants, and it's 20 pages long, and prove yourself, and be ready. I'm thinking of Mackenzie Scott right now. That yield thing, awesome. But you have to have had an over $1 million budget for at least 2 years to prove that you're ready, right? Who's deciding what ready is? Same people, the same people that decided for 2020. So I'm asking you, if you're an investor, to look at who you're investing in and what obstacles are there. What do you expect from people that you're investing in? If you're a content maker, how are you partnering with people that need content? Are you making them pay the same as other people pay, or are you able to give your content for free to people who need your content? So if we're talking about equity and inclusion, equity is different than equality, right? So you have to bring the people who've been down here up and above the level of the people you've been partnering with and investing in for the past 5 million years, right? So I'm asking you to look and see what are the real outcomes of the commitments you made in 2020. And it's fine if you look and you're like, ooh, yeah, we're still making it really easy for large investments in white-led organizations or big organizations, and we're still making it really hard for investment and support to small, Black, BIPOC-led organizations, community-based organizations, and then change it. That's all I'm asking. And we're here with you, right? So we're working all the time to change ourselves. I have not been formally incarcerated. I have to do the work 50 times harder because I'm privileged in that way, even though I'm a Black woman immigrant. So we are doing our work too. We're not just asking you to do it, but we are asking you to do it. Thank you.
Echo a lot of what Sabra just said. There's a lot of, obviously, investment that's needed, a lot of financial support. We're a small, scrappy team. We only have, on this project specifically, we've only had me as the sole developer, but there's a second developer we're bringing on. But this is, if we want to ramp up the scale and expand this, we need more developers. We need, more support, whether that be open source support or just like that with funding to bring on a stronger team. And like I said, also with the legal side of things, there's reviewals, that our lawyers are doing to make sure the documents are being created as well. But there's a lot of ways to tap in. LA is a majority renter city. 60% of Angelinos rent. If you're a renter, get connected with us at the Debt Collective. We also set up weekly virtual Zoom workshops about your rights as a tenant. You can get connected to those and use that information to tell your neighbors, to get connected to your neighbors. A lot of times we find that when we set up meetings, people don't talk to their neighbors, and once they do, they learn that a lot of the issues that their neighbors are facing, they're facing too. So that's really crucial. That's really important. Another thing would just be we need creative solutions around tech and the court, ways of bringing the court up to the 21st century, which is a whole other beast in of itself. But there's that. There's a whole bunch of motions that tenants can face even after they file this initial response. They can be served with something called discovery documents, which is a load of another huge amount of documents that are incomprehensible to most people. And we want to build a tool to help tenants file a response to that. There's times when tenants receive a sheriff's notice without even having been served their unlawful detainer eviction papers. And so there's another motion to file that to get, to be able to adequately defend yourself. And so, that would be what I would suggest is also just raising awareness that this is a resource, and that you can fight to save your home.
So, two things. One is echoing what they said about the investment and also we have a lot of initiatives that put up events and ways to get involved. We have an initiative called Women in Clean Tech that was born specifically because we wanted to close the gap for women into the tech world, but our events are open to all genders. And so this is we do events every month, and these events get you more informed about our entrepreneurs, our everything that they're doing, and our all the things that we're doing to close these gaps, the racial gender gaps in technology. And then the second thing is we need more entrepreneurs of color and women entrepreneurs in clean tech. So if you know people who are doing amazing things, please send them to us. If you have I'll give you my information, and then please, because we're doing a lot of the work in outreaching to try to make sure that we bring more entrepreneurs into our programs, but entrepreneurs of color and women entrepreneurs, but sometimes it's hard to find them, and not because they don't exist, but also because it's just there's a lot of work, and even some people don't even see themselves in that space, right? And so please encourage everyone that you know that is being innovative and creative and that have great ideas to go for it, to talk to us. We're happy to we have all programs from all levels of entrepreneurs, even people in the idea stage. We have programs. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with a lot of what my fellow panelists have shared. Definitely having support and investment in our work. If you're, I get this a lot, from folks that I work with, or just teachers that I work with. If you're someone who has been kind of lamenting over how scary the future of the world is because of technology. If you're one of those tech CEOs that signed the slow down AI letters, if you're, someone who's, feeling really disheartened by a lot of the challenges that technology is exacerbating, I would just say there are amazing people out there who are working really hard to create really powerful solutions using technology to, societal challenges that we're facing. And I think this panel is such a good example. And so I think definitely, if it's not our missions that speak to you, if there's a segment that matters to you, I guarantee you there's somebody there who's working hard and finding that nonprofit, that social impact organization that's doing that and help supporting that work instead of starting something new. I think it's that collaboration, that working together, that really is the heart and soul of LA2050 is so important. And then, for us at 9dots, I mean, it's the same thing, like the support. And, if you're interested in getting involved with 9dots, please come talk to me afterwards. It costs us about $20,000 to start up the program at a school. But when you think about that, when you think about kids getting access, from kindergarten to 6th grade, that is so, we've got it to be amazingly efficient that it only costs that much, because what we're doing is we're, really creating a computer science culture at schools, right, that sticks and lasts around, that is sustainable. So if you have giving capacity and you're interested in supporting our work, please come talk to me. Another thing I will say is one of the things that we like to do with our kids is, and one of the things we really believe is that you can't be it unless you see it. And so we like to invite folks, particularly folks who match the demographics of our students, primarily students of color from low-income communities, to come and if you're technical and you have a technical position, to come and talk to our students. We've had folks from Headspace, from Santa Monica Studios. We've had folks from Google. We've had folks from, there's a lot of growing tech here in Los Angeles. And, come and talk to our kids for a bit. It's really amazing what it's like. We recently took some kids on a field trip to Sony Santa Monica Studios headquarters, which is the video game company. Our kids love video games. And, I think when you ask kids what they want to be when they grow up, they're not thinking like, oh, I want to be a video game programmer, and but you could be. Like there's art and technology, right? Art and computer science, comes together in video games, which is so exciting. And so we took kids there, and then by the end of it, they were asking so many questions, and by the end of it, they were all like, how do I work here? How do I work here? What do I need to do? And then what college should I go to? And just like the kinds of conversations that inspires, and the way that you can really see students seeing what they can be and feeling just ready to seize it. So I think if you're somebody who is in a technical position and would love to come and be a guest speaker for our students, I would be immensely grateful. Our students absolutely love it, and it's a really fun time. We have both in-person and virtual experiences. And then, there are other ways to get involved, so if those opportunities don't work for you, please come talk to me. I think my biggest message would be, there's folks right here on the ground who are doing the work, and find them and support them, and I think together we can do it.
Love it. Thank you. I want to say we saved time so people could ask questions from you all. If there's anything that you have burning for any or all, please feel free. And I guess we're not going to have microphones, but I'm going to have Leanne, wonderful Leanne from my team.
Can I stand?
Go ahead and stand.
Eat that.
If you don't want to sit, then please sit. Do whatever makes you happy.
This is for all of you. And first of all, thank you for being here, for Tara and for Kathy. This is an amazing, affirming moment for all of us. And the gold standard is this: real time, real people. And my question for all of you is, if you look at the pie chart of your effort to do storytelling, and you also have something in common, you talk about the system you're inside of, and the buy-in systemically, the ecosystem of buy-in. How much do you value external storytelling? Like, I can use social media in quotes. Like, how much do you spend time sitting around a table saying, because I think about ad council, and they choose ideas, and they say, okay, this year we're going to talk about, foster youth. And then we all get inundated with this cause, and it changes us, and we become donors, and we want to know who you are. And all of you are from diverse causes, but you have your own little systems of, not ad council per se, but you have your social platforms. But how do you divide your priorities to say, how much do we spend time letting the person on the street know what we're doing? Because you don't know where they're going to be in 5 years and what table they're going to sit around. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. If it's all right, I'd love to start. This is actually really hard for us. This is maybe another place that we could use some support, because I'll talk to folks who haven't heard of 9dots, but we're serving like 9,000 students in LA County. We're just getting started. Like, we have a whole wait list of schools that we would bring on if we had the funds to do so. And but we have this incredible impact in our schools, and I'll talk to folks and they'll be like, how come I don't know about you? And the thing is, it's tough. Like, we're doing all of this work, and then we're supposed to also be good at social media and do posts. And I think Ev is here somewhere. He was helping us at one point with social media. It's tough. And so, to your question, I really value folks externally who come and want to help us tell our story. and help us share the work that we're doing, because to do that in-house is really tough. I have Erin here, she's our director of partnerships, and she runs our service team, runs events, helps with development, and then also does all of our external communications. And this is just, I talked to a lot of other folks in the nonprofit space. This idea of wearing multiple hats is just expected, and it's so tough because Erin is amazing at her work, but of all the things that she does, the last thing that she'll prioritize is social media, because at the end of the day, if it's about talking to a principal all day who's actually our core stakeholder, our students or our teachers, we're going to choose that, and I know that investing some time in social media will pay out later, but I think it is really tough. So having external folks help and support us is a really big way that you can help support the work of nonprofits like us.
Thank you for the question. Good question. We have a fantastic Director of Communications at Creative Acts called Sam Richardson. She does a great job. We also have September 21st, we are celebrating our 5-year anniversary, so it'll be a big celebration, fundraiser, so you'll be able to see on our website and buy tickets or make a donation, which would be awesome. But we have an extra level of issues. Our people are invisible. So we're the first program ever to work in solitary confinement. That is the belly of the beast. No one has ever worked there before. And often people are like, well, why don't you just make a video of your people or have them talk on video? And I'm like, well, first of all, our kids, when they leave juvie at 18, their records are expunged. So we can't get any identifying information about them. So what we do with them is they make protest signs that say, my vote is, because it's a civic engagement program, and then they write, beautiful, amazing, whatever they want to do. They make a protest sign, a painting. We bring that out, we put it outside polling stations. So we're trying to do what we can to amplify the silenced voices. In prison, an adult prison, it actually makes me want to cry. In solitary, they're in these 7x4 literal cages, man-sized cages. So we have them make a poster that says "Going Home Is," and they paint it during the week. They add to it. So we bring that out. We bring their stories out verbally. In juvie, we have amazing people like amazing corrido maker, which is a Mexican tradition of storytelling through song. They make corridos with her. We bring those out. We bring poetry out. But we're making a documentary. Finally, we are able to just take a video inside and make videos of people. In October, in one of our prisons, we're going to make a video of a new program with correctional officers working with residents over 5 days, 5 hours a day, to respond to the question, if there were how do we deal with serious harm if there were no prisons and no police? So no one's going to wear a uniform, everyone's using first names, no weapons, nothing like that has been done before. And now we'll be able to bring it out because we're going to make a documentary about it. So I would just say that it's not a level playing field. We have quite high obstacles to overcome in the work we do. However, we do our best, and we have pretty good social media, so please follow us, especially on Instagram. It's a constant challenge, like you're saying, we have to each wear 5,000 different hats, write grants, do social media, teach people, train people, which is fine. I'm happy to do that. That is part of the work. But you've got to have realistic expectations of how good we can be at everything.
I agree with everything that was said. That we have a great communications team too at Debt Collective, but there's so much work that I feel like all of us are doing that it's hard to really emphasize certain fields that you're working in. Right now we've been really focused on amplifying the student debt fight because of everything that's happening around there. We've been very involved in that. But there's a lot that we're trying to do to boost awareness around the Tenant Power Toolkit, let people, make them aware. We have a lot of partner orgs in LA. We want to expand that partnership outside of LA to get people to know what's happening with evictions, and also tenants who are facing these issues so that they can get connected. so we have all of this data, and we're only going to get more as usage ramps up, and we're trying to figure out how we want to use that, and to build the narrative. We're working on hiring like a designer to come up and allow people to like access anonymized data in creative ways. Rustin Wu, who did, if you've been to the Chinatown State Historic Park, there's a really beautiful history of it. He did that project, so we're trying to work with him to allow people to understand what's happening, but we really need support in building that narrative, getting the word out, getting it before it's just, people have the eviction, to let people know in advance, so yeah.
So similar as everybody, we struggle with like having a team that like dedicated for that. We have one person that dedicates to social media, and that's not nearly enough. What we do is we amplify our entrepreneurs' stories. So that we do a lot of like IG lives with them, and we do a lot of like just posts about our entrepreneurs. But it's it's not enough. We don't have enough followers. I think, in my opinion, for like the impact that we're creating. But we've been actually very fortunate that we've had a few very high-profile visits to our campus. Like 2 months ago, we had the vice president come to our offices, and so when Kamala Harris comes, like she posts about us, and then obviously that amplifies the message, and people start following us because. So that has been like really fortunate that we've had that. But we definitely need to like amplify more, and the challenge is that more like everybody has said, more people to do that, because social media is really like a whole team dedicated to that, but actually through our partnership with LA2050, I think that's one thing that we're like really hoping to do is like amplify more our message, and because LA2050 is so great at storytelling and creative, visual storytelling, that's something that we're really excited to explore more.
Thank you. That was one thing I wanted to say when I referenced that the Goldhirsh Foundation supports all these organizations with financial, human, and social capital. Part of what I mean with social capital is we promote and amplify the stories and the content and the research and events and job postings and everything that all of these wonderful people are doing. And we really feel like our value is to lift them up and let everyone else know about the work they're doing. Otherwise, we shouldn't be around the way we're around. So we do feel this, and especially with kind of the media background of the team, we really do feel like marketing and media and storytelling and branding and design and really being a partner there for the organizations we work with is important. So we have this newsletter where I encourage you all to sign up and subscribe. It's going to be featuring content about all of them and beyond, and the however many 2,000 different organizations who've applied to our grants challenge. We post jobs and events, and it's really a nice way to learn about what's happening in Los Angeles in multiple ways. And then we try to get the word out, because again, we're trying to get the word out about LA2050 and Goldhirsh Foundation to the extent that it's helpful for all of you. So we just created a movie with Vice TV about the 10-year anniversary, and it highlighted 3 different organizations who are not up here today. They don't have much to talk about in terms of their work and operations in technology, but they all have wonderful stories to tell. And that video just won a Telly Award, and we just won we've won Anthem Awards and Shorty Awards for our newsletter and our social media, and also we tried bringing what Lada had mentioned, and we tried bringing we brought a session around social media influencers and how to work with social media via Ad Council and how to tell your story. So we really try listening to what people need and how we can help them get more market penetration, more donors, more clients, more access in the community, systemic change in whatever system they're working in via storytelling and technology. Yes, question.
Yeah, I had a question. So thank you everyone for the work you guys are all doing. It's wonderful, and I see there's a common thread. It's like we need to educate the youth so that they can have jobs of the future and not struggle with, you know, housing or possibly being incarcerated. And my question's a little tough maybe, but, you know, looking at it from a venture capital lens, and, you know, you mentioned VC, and, you know, that's a big part of this ecosystem that's putting on this week, and, you know, grant money. In venture capital, you know, it's capitalism, right? And you have limited partners whose money is being spent to get lucrative returns, and that's a big part of it. So when you're having those conversations with, you know, investors who are looking at it from that lens, how do you help, I don't know if justify is the right word, but like, you know, like sell that in, or, you know, like, does that make sense? Yeah.
Have you all also had conversations like that? I mean, I think it's a really good thing to raise.
So because we work with startups, we work with a lot of like VCs, we obviously our main focus of impact is environmental. So we work with a lot of like venture capitalists that like are already in like they're already focused and they're already interested in like in climate solutions. But we do need, and that's something that we're working on, especially with the program that I'm doing. We need more investors who want to invest in our founders of color and our women founders. There are investors that are interested in just funding people like that, but we need to find them more. We need to like amplify that message more, and then see how. Yes, the climate solutions investors are great, but we also want to make sure that like we have investors who care about like the inclusivity aspect of our organization.
Yeah, no, this is a great question as well. There's many different avenues. I think in the fight for like student debt cancellation or getting, you know, COVID debt forgiven, people might, you know, view that in different ways, like how is that beneficial for like a VC, but if you think about this in terms of we're about to enter a recession, it seems, from all, you know, things that it's looking like, and a big hindrance of people's spending money is having this massive amount of debt, and it's actually, study after study shows that like removing a lot of this debt from people's everyday lives will actually generate a lot of economic output into the industries that we're trying to accelerate, particularly in tech. And so it really, you know, I feel like we really can use that to give everybody access to, you know, the world we live in. And yeah, that would be what I would say.
This is another area that you all can help. There's a lot of small BIPOC-led organizations that don't know how to speak to VCs, have never had any access to VCs. So maybe this is something some of you could do. You could train people how to speak to VCs. One thing I will say is that because this is a segregated country, we think that incarceration is happening over there to those people. It's not, right? It's like right here, and it affects all of us. I actually heard when my son was in elementary school a really shocking statistic that they can tell from second grade if a black boy fails second grade, 100% of them go to prison. I remember hearing that and just being like, what? So basically, they're building prisons looking at black boys in second grade. How many prisons do we need? How many beds do we need? Oh, this is how many we're going to invest in. That affects every single person. Prison and the justice system is the biggest suck of money, public money in this country. Billions of dollars go into that system. Like I said, we are all here spending $1 million per kid in juvie down the road. In fact, right here in Camp Kilpatrick in Malibu, we're spending there. Right now there are 18 kids in there. $18 million a year is going to those kids. Imagine if, okay, you want to incarcerate 18 kids, 500,000 there, and 500,000 invested in college, in universities, so when they come out they can have a free ride to university. So I feel like talking to VCs, my job is to try to get them to meet people who are incarcerated or have been incarcerated so that they can understand that this is you, this is your son, your daughter. There is no separation. And if you want to be in a healthy capitalistic society and make money, this is one of the probably top 3 problems in this country that we have to solve, because it is killing our economy. If you look at places like the Central Valley, I think we have 13 or 12 prisons now in the Central Valley. Apart from farming, the second biggest employer is prisons. So when we try to close a prison, we can't close prisons because we're putting so many people out of work, right? All of these things are directly related to the economy. And I think that if we can stop thinking that people who are incarcerated are all Charles Manson, and start to understand that they are our neighbors and they're coming back to be our neighbors, even if you live in Beverly Hills and they live in South LA, doesn't matter, they're still your neighbors. We may develop the urgency and vision we need to invest in the right places and the right people. That camp in Malibu cost $56 million. Those kids have never been to Malibu in their life. The first time they went was to go to prison. It has state-of-the-art school, amazing programs, a swimming pool, beautiful place. Yes, when kids are incarcerated, they should have all of that. But then they leave and they go home to 10 miles down there to the worst schools, to the worst buildings, to the worst of everything. Why don't we, if we're putting $56 million into a prison, invest $56 million into the community there? So that place, that would immediately bring down barriers of segregation, because then rich white people would want their kids to go to the best schools, to visit the best restaurants, to go to the best hospitals, which would be down there, right? So I think it's an urgent issue for all of us, and I really appreciate your question. Thank you.
I think I just would echo a lot of what my fellow panelists have said. I think we have a few VCs that support us, and I think, look, it's a social investment, and like all of our industries are really tied to the economy in a lot of ways, so we draw those lines. I love the idea of like one way you can support if you are a VC is like help train folks in nonprofits to have those better conversations, because I think like the investment. The long-term investment will pay out for all of us in society, and so I think, just really agree with what my fellow panelists have said.
We have time for one more, please.
So good.
2 more. We have, okay, perfect. The 2 in the, you guys all in the front row, and I'm happy to also talk to you more about like some of the structural stuff later. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I have one comment and then a potential offer. One, I love your question. I think we need a systemic change in VC. I want to imagine if every fund put 1% of their fund towards social good projects. Because here's the thing, business cannot thrive in a world that is falling apart. You cannot make money in a collapsing society. And so it's imperative that VCs start seeing these problems that we have that are just exacerbating and are willing to put some of that capital towards that, literally 1%. And we could create a movement that pushes that, and that becomes the gold standard. So that's my comment to that, because again, that's the only way you're going to make money. In terms of my offer, I love everything all you guys are doing. It's really super meaningful to me. My family got, I was homeless for almost a year at 13. Excuse me, jeez. We got, my family didn't pay the rent 1 month because our toilet hadn't worked for over a year. And a week late, and we got an eviction notice to get out in 3 days.
Oh.
And so I was homeless for almost a year. So what you're doing, super awesome. Clean tech, love it. My stepdad was a drug dealer. My mom is intellectually disabled. It would have been so easy for them to end up in prison. Coding is so critical. One thing that so to get to my offer, social media is really, really critical, and oftentimes it gets seen as a secondary or tertiary thing, but it can actually be a real significant way to drive income for your organization. I think you guys have a huge opportunity to actually monetize content and with something like Patreon. I'd love to chat with you guys about that. By the way, if I'm making this up, and like I'm happy to have these conversations for free. Like I'm happy to give of time that I don't have, but I'll find. But I'd love to chat with all of you just about what your social media strategy is, what your content strategy, and how you can use that to actually drive revenue or fundraising for your different organizations.
Come on, Jim, join us.
Thank you so much, guys. You guys are awesome. I love what you guys are doing. My name is Gina, and I'm a human hair sourcing expert. And I identify a lot of things with all of you guys, but I'm going to pick on you two. Laura, you mentioned that there were some obstacles about bringing to market a sustainable product, from collection to sourcing and the price point. And Sabra, you mentioned a little bit about knowing about all the doom and gloom behind the curtain that most people don't know about. I identify with both of those things when it comes to sourcing ethical human hair for my business Eye of Beauty. What is your best advice about strategizing your storytelling in a way that you don't make people depressed? Because there's a lot of dark side to the hair industry, and I don't want to make people depressed. I want them to feel encouraged that there's another option, and that we can collectively do better in the beauty industry. But it's so hard when you know so much and it happens to be dark. Any advice about being positive and impactful and profitable with a message through?
Yeah, I think that it comes down to the solutions that we offer. So we obviously all of these technologies and all of these solutions that we're creating are because we have problems, right? There are problems that we want to address. But I think that the inspiration comes in the solutions. So what are these solutions doing in these communities, in the world, that are really transforming our communities, our world? So that's what we focus on. That's why we focus on the entrepreneur story, because entrepreneurs, particularly entrepreneurs of color, it's not easy to be an entrepreneur. First of all, it's very difficult. It's the path of entrepreneurship is extremely hard, and not a lot of people can make it. It's really an inspiring path if you get all the way to launching a product. So I think that's what we focus. And so with your story, I would just focus on the end result, right? What are the sourcing of the hair? I'm assuming that it's because you create wigs, or you create
I invented a hair product called Mesh Tech. So it's a hair extension.
Okay, a hair extension. So that provides confidence to people, right? That provides what is your product providing to people that is inspiring, and I would just focus on that, on the solutions.
Thank you for the question. I'm an activist, so I have a slightly maybe different lens. In Buddhism, we talk about turning poison into medicine. People have to know what the poison is, and then you can choose to change it. So I will start by saying the most joy I get in my life is inside prison, because I meet people who are the most creative, inspiring, I don't like the word resilient, but I guess you could say resilient, but visionary, optimistic people I've met in my life. Everything good in my life, I've learned behind bars. So I've become a better parent, a better artist, a better practitioner, teaching artist, because of the partnerships I have with people who have been incarcerated. They've changed my life in every way. That is inspiring to me. And then I have to remember that I don't have the same lived experience. I need to know the reality. And so let's say when we post about solitary confinement, we do a trigger warning on the first page. But if you can get past the first page, it is so inspiring. And I hear, for instance, people are shocked and upset when they see grown men in a tiny cage, right? Those same men, we're all like, oh my God, this is terrible. Those same men tell us This is the closest I've come to freedom in 10, 20, 30 years, because I'm only usually allowed out 1 hour a day. I'm 4 hours a day for 7 days with people who are filling this space with love and creativity and giving me resources that I've never had before. This is freedom right now for us. So a lot of it is our perspective and our lived experience, and I have to listen and receive from people who don't have the same lived experience as me. That is joyful. But you have to know the reality. That's the poison, and then we have to take action. You can't just sit with the poison. You have to take action to transform that into medicine. Medicine means I'm taking action to change and transform it. That's how you get joy.
Thank you. So thank you all so much. This is conclusion. Thank you, Alexis, Sabra, Paul, and Mara. Thank you again, Creative Visions Foundation, and Pat and Kathy. Thank you to my wonderful team, and thank you all of you for being here and supporting and asking and being such a wonderful participatory audience. So thanks again.